we're looking at a story that's really caught our attention from Bengaluru. In cities across India, it's almost routine where young tenants, single women, bachelors pulled up by RWAs are questioned about the parties that they are happening in their house, about the rules of the society, and they're often silenced, and tenants usually endure it. But this time the story seems different. This time a young woman has decided to fight back. She's fought back. A 22-year-old woman from Bengaluru claims that she's taken her housing society's so-called society uncles to court. She sent them a legal notice for busting her house party. She, in fact, says some of the members of the housing society have also been removed and fines have been imposed, and the civil suit that she's filed on them amounts to 62 lakhs. That's the viral Reddit post that the woman has put out, where she says she lives alone in one of the city's most prestigious societies in Bengaluru, describes an incident where 5 friends were coming over to her house. She says clearly that there was no real party. There was hardly any loud music. There was no nuisance. There was just cooking and conversation that was happening. But she says in her post that RWA members barged in. They objected to bachelors entering her house, visiting her flat, demanding that she calls the owner. She says that I am the owner myself. Now, she says right after that, of course, none of the men took it well. They went back and came back with 5 more people. And thankfully, she says she had a camera in her living room that recorded all of that confrontation. She says that her friends were just there and they were having good conversation and food, but they were accused of consuming drugs, and of creating nuisance and whatnot by these men who had barged into her house. She claims the entire incident was captured on CCTV cameras. Where in that post she spoke about footage that she had shown to the police finally, and with the society taking cognizance of this, the other members of the society, they decided that those members who harassed her will be fined 20,000 rupees and they'll be removed from the board, from the society board itself. So she says that she's filed a civil suit seeking 62 lakh in compensation and a permanent injunction. They, of course, internet erupted with this story, many of them lauding her, some of them not believing if this is a true story or concocted just for eyeballs. But keeping faith that this was true and authentic, let's bring in our guest joining us, Veena Mohit Kumar, member of the RWA Bengaluru. We also have KV Dhananjay, Senior Advocate, Karnataka High Court and Supreme Court, and Sandeep Aniruddhan, who's a civic activist in Bengaluru. Thanks very much, all of you. KV Dhananjay, over to you. 62 lakh civil suit that the lady has decided to file against the society uncles. Is she very much capable of winning it?
Well, if this story is true, then it sets a new novelty. We've had barely any case like this in this country. So now a society sometimes can be seen as a club. And Nabila, you know what happens in clubs. They have these strange and strict rules, and very often members of the club are asked to abide by it. So it remains to be seen how well this suit will move forward. But it's important that if someone is so harassed that they do file a suit. Now, let's just assume the story is true, or maybe a lot of people want to believe that the story is true, though there is some rumor that the story itself might be fake. But as you did say, it's a topic worth discussing, and therefore let's all just assume that whatever she's put in as her post is true, and it did happen. And the privacy, again, we all have to remember one thing: privacy is a fundamental right in this country. Of course, it was always a fundamental right, but the Supreme Court, in case Putswamy, gave it put its seal of approval to that aspect, because very often, police would say, okay, we want this, we want that, because someone has complained against you, and very often revenue officer would say, give us that, give us this, and so on and so forth. So privacy in India, by the way, though it's a fundamental right, it still faces lots of challenges. You had the recent survey where people would teachers would come into your house. Technically, that's a trespass because there is no law that's authorizing them to go and then conduct a survey like this. So in a country like this, for a 22-year-old woman to stand up and to say that, look, enough is enough. I've been harassed enough and I don't want to take it anymore, and I therefore want to sue, irrespective of the outcome of what happens in a suit like that. The fact that someone is willing to stand up and then file a suit, that itself is going to, mark some amount of deterrence. And I think therefore it is welcome. The other aspect is, what business do these uncles have to barge in a woman's, or a woman or a man in his house? They're entitled to assume that they are private, and and no one is just going to barge through their door. So they probably might be dressed differently. And so just imagine the situation when you have strangers barge into your room or your house, and they find you in the way you are. That's an egregious breach of privacy, and it's important that if the society adjusts. I'm not saying we need to adopt the American or the Canadian model of privacy. It probably might never happen in this country, but I don't think we should be content with where we are today. I think we need to make a lot of progress. A suit like this probably is, I think, a first step. I'm not assuring anybody that a suit like this will eventually prevail. Very often in this country, what happens is pressure starts building up after a suit is filed, and then good lawyering. Again, there is a lot of asymmetry. If the defendants in this case can manage to hire good and then top lawyers, they could probably get this case dismissed. And if this woman, 22-year-old girl rather, is not in a position to match the legal, and if her lawyers are not in a position to match the legal skills of the adversaries' lawyers, then she might have a hard time. They are going to say lots of things, because the fact of the matter is this is still a novel area. It would be difficult really to browbeat another person if the law is too well settled, in which event your lawyer, even if he comes from a humble background, can still make out a case. But in a matter where there is a great deal of novelty, reputed lawyers tend to really have a say. Reputed lawyers tend to influence the court. So there are these challenges. But let's just assume, or we want to believe, that the story is true to start with. You see, that's a predicament we all are in. We don't want to fact check this too well, because if we do that and it turns out that it was sort of a hoax, we're going to drop it. But the social good is in assuming that this must be true, because there's nothing.
The reason why I've gone ahead with it, believing this is authentic. I'm not going to probe into it further. We've reached out, but we haven't got a response to it. But I still believed it's an important conversation for the only reason because you have people.
You're absolutely right. Because there's social good in this.
Yeah.
Because there is no perversity in what she is doing. Look, this is possible. It's just that nobody else did this. It's possible.
But you're saying if your building society comes into your house and harasses you, you can take them to court. What if they have rules that says beyond this hour, bachelors not allowed, beyond this time? First of all, who decides who can come into your house and who can't, right? We understand that, but still societies have rules that after this point, for the safety of the other residents, you can't have strangers walking into the building. Then how, as a homeowner, as a tenant, what rights do I have? I have zero freedom then.
Great question. So even if, let's say, there is a commitment by this girl beforehand that she would not let in any person come into her house beyond a certain time, and if there's a violation of that, there's always a method to address it. Barging in a place where a girl is alone is never the option. You can always stand outside the door, you can knock on the door, you can request them, and there is always a way and a method. And what happens at the end of the day, is there going to be a terrorist attack or anything if they just leave her to herself? No. So they could always take it up the next morning, convene a meeting. What they did, allegedly, in this case, but anyway, the fact of the matter is, because names are not even there in the picture, so we don't need to use the word allegedly, because no one's going to really be hurt. So whatever is reported by the girl, I think is egregious conduct on the part of all of those people. They ought not to have done anything like that. What is it that would happen? Look, which world are we living in? At the end of the day, women and men have the freedom to mix with people of their choice in their house, in their apartment. And I don't think any member or any housing society should ask members to barter away that freedom in return for what? What do they get in return? Because, these are agreements at the end of the day. And the British left us with a wonderful law called the Indian Contract Act. And you read that contract law, you will find that this agreement, the house owners or house building societies, whatever agreement they have, that will have to meet the test laid down in the Indian Contract Act. And that's a 150-year-old law. It's a great law. Under that law, you must receive something in return. What is this girl? What is receiving anything in return? She's agreeing to so many different conditions where she is bartering, where giving away, giving up on our freedom, on our protection. What is she receiving in return? It's time that the society comes forward and says, okay, we insist so much from members of a housing society, from an apartment owner. This is what you receive in return. There is really no such bargain at all there. So, and that's where this spurious morality comes in. Oh, we have a notion of how people should live, and we want you to live like that. Because if the girl starts asking, what am I getting in return for all these covenants you asked me to sign on? Well, very little.
Okay, let me bring in Veena Mohit Kumar, who's an RWA member in Bengaluru. Veena, do you believe our societies must mature up a little? We must be more acceptable. First of all, even if it's true that they are bachelors and having a good time, who is anybody to interfere in a person's business? And as long as they're not creating a nuisance in front of other people's homes, right? If the sound is not overtly disturbing, even then a little bit of sound should be tolerated if that's the case, because now you have homes that are so close knit, you can literally listen to your neighbors talking sometimes. We are on mute.
Thank you so much for having me, Nabila.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Both the stories can be true. It can be true that moral policing by the society uncles are true. At the same time, posting such kind of posts for some kind of arrangement made, even that is true. But my thing is, where do youngsters go and chill out then? Where do they vibe? They don't have any place. They cannot enjoy with their friends in the apartments. They cannot do it elsewhere. It is like the major contribution for this entire society. So many of our youngsters are contributing so much to the economics, so much to the career, everything in every field. But as far as these restrictions are concerned, it looks like they are like they are under microscopic this one. They are not allowed to do anything. They have to go by the books. And I was very curious to know, how did these uncles or how did these RWA members target this particular house? How did they even come to know? Again, there are two sides to this. If there was no noise at all, if there was no disturbance at all, if there was nothing which is uncommon, I don't know how they figured they have to go to this particular house and go ahead and check on them. Whether it's right or not is another thing. If everything was normal, I don't think they would go. I personally feel like our youngsters who contribute so much to the society, especially to the Bangalore city, they're contributing so much. We should let them have their space. We should let them, enjoy a little. They have no place to go. At the same time, if the RWS have approached them, they have understood that there is something which is very uncommon happening. I think we have to look into both sides. But either ways, the toxicity is not in the Reddit users or any other website users trying to scrutinize this. It is very good. It is very good that we are scrutinizing it, and if it is credible, and in this case we are going with the notion that it is credible. If this is credible, then the support they are getting, they're garnering, I completely support it. But at this point, I'm in a very neutral state. I still feel we have to encourage our youngsters. I am all for the youngsters. They should get a place to listen to the music, and we should adjust a little about smaller things. Okay, we do understand the illegal aspect. Our lawyer has completely explained it. But as far as a little bit of music, little bit of fun, I think this state should encourage that.
Right. Sandeep, are you of the same view that there should be rules flexible enough for I'm not saying youngsters alone, right? Like for people who rent a house or buy a home, if their their values are clear, they're good people who are non-interfering and not troubling, willfully troubling people or hatching plans to create fob trouble there. They should be allowed freedom enough to call people at home and do as they wish. Behind closed doors, it's none of anybody's business. But we see increasingly the apartment culture across Bengaluru and beyond, but Bengaluru specifically here, since the story is from there, very nosy society people.
Hello, Nabila. Thanks for having me. Seeing you after a long time. On this issue, Nabila, see, first of all, I'd like to take the position on the basis that we only have one side's version. We don't have the other version. We only have the version of the girl, I mean, allegedly posting something against the race. Now, the things we have to look at is what could have been the causes for it. And unless we hear the opposite side, we won't know for sure. But the likelihood is this, as I think the other panelists said, why should people from other buildings come and inquire into what's happening? This most likely, and I'm thinking the most likely scenario is this: a bunch
Yes,
of
right. Like
people
if
in their
you're
own
looking at
apartment
hypothetically
getting
also, it
together.
happens.
No. When a bunch of people, a group of people are in an apartment, friends together, they tend to become very boisterous and they make a lot of noise. Now, if it is during normal hours, fine. As you said that people have to make some noise and music and all that, you can't shut all that. But it's after, like if it's after 10, and this is what we have noticed in Whitefield, we have an RWA federation. Very often the complaints about youngsters come after 10. They start their partying at 11 or 12 and it goes on till morning.
Now
And then they'll
everything
have
is
their
house
windows
parties.
open.
Nobody's even going out. All parties are moving home.
So what happens is, if their windows are open, if they're partying on their balconies, the entire neighborhood gets disturbed. And then there are set laws for this, as Mr. Dhananjay would know. The maximum noise permitted in a residential area is 55 decibels in the daytime and only 45 decibels in the night. If it exceeds that, it is a real complaint because the people who are living in the other buildings will not be able to sleep. And a lot of people face these problems. I think a majority of 112 complaints in Bangalore now are about nighttime noise, like people getting disturbed by noise in other houses or apartments, and the police generally go and warn them. Nothing more happens. Now the other aspect, the lady has actually posted about people bursting into her apartment. That's an absolute no. That's a trespassing. It's criminal trespass, and that certainly should not be forgiven. The third thing is the society bylaws generally, societies cannot make laws which are in contravention of set laws. So the statute overrides everything they make. So basically, some society members think, like that we can make whatever laws we want. What a person does in their own apartment is none of anybody's concern unless they are being a nuisance to others. If they have been making noise, yes, it is a nuisance. Then it, of course, concerns. But the society members or neighbors should have ideally called 112, the police. They shouldn't have stepped into the apartment at any cost.
Yeah. So I think what I get a unanimous no to that behavior. If this story is to be believed, then no entry should be given to people into your home. If anything, you could have had a discussion a day after. So nosy society uncles, while you're having a party, if they try or attempt to crash it, then you can pull them up, legally so as well. Thanks very much, KV Dhananjay, for your legal expertise, Sandeep and Ms. Veena for joining us.